It's a little bit abstract for people to just like, I want to be a better person. Like, okay, that's an admirable goal, but it can be a bit nebulous. And even people that say like, I want to be a better person probably have something in mind.
Right.
Certain situations in which they want to show up differently. But what I love about Mussar is it actually gives you a structure to affect that change and sort of a time-tested approach to facilitating that change
Yeah.
in a way that's, very affirming. It's very gentle. There's a lot of stress on like not being so hard on ourselves.
Mm.
And so, fostering self-compassion and self-forgiveness and recognizing that, we were created in God's image, but none of us are perfect. And so giving ourselves permission to make mistakes, but having a structure in place where you can say like, well, I still notice that I can get very impatient at times. And so what's the teaching around patience and what might I do? Or I still feel anger. And maybe sometimes that's a good thing, but not always, or how I channel that energy of anger to be productive, right? So it gives a structured approach to change. And I mentioned anger and patience, not that I think people would describe me as a horribly impatient or angry guy, but internally, I think I just managed those emotions. They didn't often boil up and result in sort of inappropriate behavior in the workplace or in my interpersonal relationships, but they were below the surface at times. And so just becoming, I think, more mindful of those emotions and finding healthier ways to channel them, I think, is probably what I've noticed Mussar has helped me the most. You study sort of one midot at a time, and I don't think you realize the full benefit of Mussar until you sort of have a suite of midot that you got under your belt. Because in my experience, it's unusual that only one trait would be in play in a particular situation. So when you feel triggered or challenged, and I give the example, there's someone that I have interacted with from time to time, and I think most people would just describe her as a very difficult person. She's always complaining. She's never happy with anything. She's very critical. And, when I first met her and had to deal with her, that was sort of my read. And it took me a while to realize, like, she's a very unhappy person. And, like, I've developed this compassion. Rather than judging her, I've tried to take the time to understand, like, what is the source of her, unhappiness. And it's changed the way I speak with her. I'm sure the tone of my voice is different now when I interact with her. And so instead of some of those conversations becoming even more unpleasant and escalating, they tend, to be more productive. Because I think she can, I'm more empathetic and understanding. I try to listen at what's really the underlying issue that's bothering her and not get too hung up on how she might be communicating, her feelings. And so I think that's a direct result of the Mussar training. And so it's not just one trait, but it's, compassion, it's honor, it's patience, it's attentive listening. So there were so many traits that come together in life situations, and you don't always know exactly which trait it was that you studied that is in play at a particular moment. But as I mentioned, there's so many that complement one another.
Yes.
In some of the more challenging situations. Sometimes it's very obvious, if you're stuck in traffic, it might be patience, or somebody cut you off, it might be, anger or something. But in some of life's more complex situations, it's sort of like every trait that you study is one more tool in your toolbox, and then you can handle, life situation, the messier situations with, I'll say more finesse and in ways that are, don't contribute to making the situation worse.